Billiken fans, welcome back. It's Peter Hale, Zach Miller. This is the Midtown Madness Podcast. Before we get going, thank you so much for listening. And if you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. Also, that bell down there gives you a notification whenever a new episode drops every Monday. This episode and the whole season of the Midtown Madness Podcast is brought to you by 2 Men in a Garden. Whether you like it mild or hot, chunky or cantina style, the people over at 2 Men have you covered. I know what you're asking, Zach. Why 2 Men in a Garden? They're a 100% St. Louis company. Not only are they local, but they've opened up their production facility to local food entrepreneurs. They love St. Louis the way I do. You can pick up their many products at any local grocery store or online at 2meninAgarden.com. Follow them on social at 2Men Salsa on Instagram and Twitter. Pete, big news. Chris May and the athletic department moved way quicker on this one, I think, than the women's basketball hiring. It seems like he kind of knew what exactly he was looking for, and he found her. And it's someone that we brought up immediately. It's Andrea Beaty. She's been announced as the new head coach of the St. Louis University volleyball program.
Yeah, that's right, Zach. She was on our short list when we went over potential candidates, a month ago. I think the original announcement was December 13th. I know it was mid-December. It was right around there. So it looks like in just over a month, they went from the announcement of Kent Miller is firing to the new hiring. To give a little background on her, Andrea Beaty spent 2 years at SLU playing under Ann Cordes and then Kent Miller. Then she transferred to Missouri State for her final 2 years. At SLU, she was A10 Rookie of the Year as a freshman, first team all-conference as a sophomore, so she was a big loss. Then a two-time all-conference player at Missouri State. So coaching stints at UTEP, Syracuse, and Denver. The last two of those also included interim head coaching positions at Syracuse.
At Denver. Oh wait,
at Syracuse because
I didn't know that.
Because the coach was let go.
Okay.
And then at Denver, she was hired as associate head coach last year, served as interim head coach while the existing head coach underwent cancer treatment. Right. She led them to a 19-12 record and coached two first team all conference players. She was named to the American Volleyball Coaches Association 30 under 30 list last year. She spent 4 years as the head coach at St. Francis Borgia High School in Washington, Missouri. After graduating Missouri State in 2015, she racked up 100 wins in 4 seasons there, 4 conference titles, 4 district titles, 2 state semifinal appearances. She's from Pacific, so she's from that area, attended Washington High School, and was a 3-time all-state selection. Also played and coached for the Rockwood Thunder Volleyball Club. So, Zach, like we said, she was on our short list. I think we had 5 or 6 names on there when we talked about potential candidates a month ago. You've got some direct experience with her from your SLU volleyball days. What's your opinion of her as a person and as a hire?
As a person, off the charts, great person. Got to go say hi to her at one of the timeouts during the basketball game on Saturday. Couldn't be happier to see her. So excited to see her get a chance here with Billiken volleyball. I think, as a hire, I think she brings that mentality that Ann Cordes, Ann Cordes recruited Andrea Beaty. Ann Cordes knows that Beaty brings the mentality, the same mentality that Ann Cordes brought to the volleyball court. So I think in that respect, it's big time. It's a young, hungry coach. I say young, but like we're the same age.
Young to me.
Yeah, young in the terms of head coaching, and right. She's gonna get a chance, and she's excited. Like it's an exciting hire. It's someone local from the area. She's gonna be able to recruit the area well. Hopefully, that's the plan. I think if you're looking to inject some energy into a program that spent 10 years under an incredibly stale personality at the helm, like Andrea Beaty is the perfect 180 turn from Kent Miller.
It's interesting to say that, because when you look at her 2 years at SLU, she was an Anacortes recruit, played for Anacortes, rookie of the year in the A10, and then left. After the coach that she would eventually replace was hired. That to me is kind of a really interesting dynamic. In just a little over a decade, she goes from playing for a coach, who didn't recruit her, who she didn't intend to play for, goes to being his replacement as head coach at this program. One of the things I liked at the end of the original press release that SLU put out was they did have quotes from like 5 or 6 different coaches, just talking about the hire. And I know it's a lot like having your book blurbed by your literary peers, and they're not going to say not his best stuff. She's done better work in the past. They're going to say good stuff. But I did like a lot of the things they had to say here, Zach. And I'm wondering if in reading these, or in talking to anyone else, or in just what you've read and what are you kind of hearing what other people think of this hire, and what the community thinks of it?
Yeah, I think, I, as far as I'm aware, I believe they did reach out to Anacortes for her reference, so to speak. I mean, not that you really need reference. I mean, you do need references, but I mean, her body of work speaks for itself, but I think it was absolutely a great call to involve Ann in whatever way you can into making a hire. I think, and obviously knows what it takes to win here at St. Louis University. And if she will, go to bat for Andrea, that's a ringing endorsement in my mind.
She seems like a person who is not a BSer, Anacortes. She seems like she's kind of a straight shooter, and she's going to tell you what she thinks.
I would agree with that. And she'll be in your face while she does it too. So no, I think I'm super excited for Beaty to get going. And I think it's absolutely the right hire. I want to say this, and I don't want it to come off the wrong way, but look, like we talked about when Kent Miller was originally hired, there's a lot of people who talked about how that when they were going to hire people, the response they were getting was like, I like the job, but not at that price. And I think if again, you're looking to try to go with a hire that's, maybe not an established head coach, one that's an absolute home run, 5-star lock that they're going to turn the program around. You have to bring in somebody who brings the type of energy that a young coach like Beaty can bring. Because I mean, you had that with Anacortes. You tried the 180 from Anacortes. You brought in a guy who was an established head coach with a long history in the sport of volleyball. And I mean, the program stagnated and definitely regressed. So by bringing in a young, hungry coach, you could absolutely do worse if your compensation hasn't changed, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think absolutely you go up and coming. It's hard to do in basketball if that's the kind of thing you're going to do. It's hard. In the major sports, soccer is a tough one. Obviously they did very well with Katie Shields, but I think this is absolutely the right move and a home run hire for what it is.
Katie Shields is somebody who immediately came to mind. I mean, somebody who was kind of, around this age bracket when she was hired as the head coach of the women's soccer program. And I think that's probably the level, that's the person that, if you're Chris May, that you're trying to hire for every other program, every chance you get, right? Like you're looking for the person who's just at the right part of their career, between up and coming, right level of experience, right person, the right cultural fit. May is huge on culture. He's always talking about cultural fit. So that's got to happen here too. How do you think the AD, not just May, but the department, whatever, the school, how do you think they handled the process here? I mean, you seem pretty pleased with the turnaround time being a month or just over a month.
Yeah, I don't see any problem with it. I thought, they waited a little long to fire Kent Miller if they were going to do it. Obviously, like, I'm not saying like years wise, I'm saying like from the end of the season. But yeah, no, I have no complaints. I think it's quick turnaround time. They knew who they wanted. I mean, it seems that Chris May, for the most part, when it comes to his hires, he knows he has somebody in mind already. He's already replacing a head coach 6 months before he actually lets them go in his head. Like that's as far as I can like gather from every hire he's ever made. I do think it's a huge compliment to, I think the reason why Beaty will be successful here. I think you look at, she was the interim coach twice she was put in charge of Syracuse's program to guide that program after a firing. She was chosen to, and even bigger, chosen to lead Denver while their coach was fighting a battle against cancer. Now you bring in, you're bringing in someone who was entrusted by, multiple athletic departments to guide a program in turmoil. You bring her in. Now she's back in her home area. She's got those Rockwood Thunder connections. She's got, I mean, just St. Louis in general. It's a massive volleyball market. We talk to people that are close to the show who are in the volleyball community, and they all said, you can absolutely win if you get actual legit Division I talent. If you get one or two of those players, and then you fill it out with, the really good St. Louis players. Like if you focus on St. Louis recruiting, you can win the A10 going away every year. So I'm pumped, man. I'm pumped.
We get that message a lot. It seemed like when we were kind of, scouring a little bit for information after Kent Miller, like who would we hire? What do they need to bring? One of the things that I, and take it for what it's worth, it was posted by somebody on Billikens.com. But one of the things that was posted there was that they think May talked to someone on the board of trustees or someone high level at the university who's kind of connected to the local volleyball scene. And they wanted to make sure they got this hire right from a club, a local club, regional club, and recruiting perspective. Like that had to be just the right person, because I think the message that you just said right there, that you can win the A10 if you start picking off this local talent, keeping them home, building that culture, you can absolutely win this league and make yourself a regular in the NCAA tournament. Whether or not that's the exact connection that they made, it seems like that's the message here.
Yeah, I agree. And again, you bring in a person who has those deep connections with the local volleyball scene. It's not even that you need to be, necessarily connected to a certain player. Like you don't have to, you don't have to know Jay Blossom's daughter. I mean, but like you look at that and I don't know, does she want to take a grad transfer year? Now, like you've got this St. Louis raised coach that knows all these girls that are away. It's just like when, Corey Tate, don't even forget Corey Tate, Kalish. It's Kevin Kalish. Like you look at the guy who he came in from Gallagher, and automatically all these dudes from St. Louis that are like, I played for Kalish when I was a kid. While, I know Kalish, I know Stoll, like, come on back home. It's the same, and a little bit with Tate too on the basketball side, like a guy like Pickett, in keeping the local high schoolers home. But I will say before we move on, I have to say that obviously, Andrea, we want you on the show as quickly as possible. And she knows that.
We've already reached out.
Yeah. I gave her I gave her a text as soon as I heard the news. I was super pumped, and she's I'm hoping to get her on the show ASAP.
I wonder if during her conversations with the athletic department, if they warned her about us.
Well,
there are these two idiots who are going to reach out to you really soon.
So it is obviously humorous because I was kind of in my head laughing because when I went over to say hi to Beaty, she's sitting next to Chris May. And so like I was like, do I want to like associate her with me? I was like, well, he knows, like so not like he doesn't know. But yeah, no, I'm pumped, Pete. I'm excited to be excited about Billiken volleyball again, and I definitely will be getting some season tickets.
Yeah, great. Yeah, I mean, yeah, me too. I mean, it was. I think we're both in pretty clear agreement here that it was time. That Miller got what 11, 12 years. 12 years. It's a long time, and the program was pretty stagnant, pretty stale. And this seems like the right hire at the right time. So very exciting.
Yeah, let's move him over to Chaffetz Arena too. Let's move him to Chaffetz Arena. Maybe a couple big games a year,
Yeah.
and we'll work it out down the line.
Yeah, right.
But let's make that happen. Some news that may have frustrated some Billiken fans, but I think we should put our tinfoil hats on a little bit on this one, in a good way. I think as Billiken fans.
We found out it was teased a little bit by, I guess, Ross, right? Ross Chaffetz teased it a little bit that there was some big news coming, and I think this would have been the night of the Loyola game, because he said tomorrow we've got an announcement. And how was it worded, Zach? Because it was something that was
a big time. It was funny because looking back on it, he definitely was like teasing the actual name, because at the end it said, this announcement might shock you.
Yes.
But yeah, I had my guesses on this. Obviously I know, just in passing, that Chaffetz has been wanting to do something in the sports realm. I mean, we've talked about, them kind of thinking about NBA for a minute, other forms of G League maybe. And so I kind of did some digging, and I actually was wrong on this one. I thought so. A women's pro volleyball team or a women's pro volleyball league was announced in November. And when I went and after he teased it, and of course everybody's running wild with like this, and this, I go, okay, maybe it is that, but not that. And so I went and Googled like sports leagues starting 2023. And there's a volleyball league, a women's pro volleyball league, but it's not that. But that would have been equally, if not even more cool, I think, in my opinion. But you know what? I love pickleball. Pickleball's fun. As a former tennis player, like I wish pickleball had been around when I was leaving high school, because tennis didn't do anything for me in college. Like I could have gone and played competitively pickleball. So.
Yeah, there you go. So his original tweet on the 18th was, big road win for St. Louis men's basketball. Enjoyed seeing Gentile and looking forward to more A10 men's basketball matchups with Loyola Chicago to come. The fun will continue for STL sports fans. Stay tuned for more exciting news coming tomorrow morning. And then the next morning, St. Louis, we're going to be announcing some exciting sports news any moment. Follow Chaffetz Group and Rich Chaffetz and myself to see the news first. It may shock you. And then it was, we are thrilled to join Major League Pickleball as the league's newest owner. And we're excited to introduce STL Shock MLP, the St. Louis Shock Major League Pickleball team. We look forward to bringing the fastest growing game in America to St. Louis. And then, the branding, some of like their draft picks they've already got announced, things like that. Pickleball, I do know, is growing very fast. There's some people on my street who play it at the swim and tennis club in our neighborhood. I found out Joanne Giovanni, shout out Joanne if you're listening. Maybe Larry is, I don't know. Lifelong friends of mine. My best friend growing up, his mom just got into it. And I found out about this in December when I was back in St. Louis. It seems like everybody's getting into it. The thing for me that was interesting is, it seems like pickleball has exploded as like this from a participation standpoint. So I do wonder about what is the viability, the possibility as a spectator sport, because I think of it more as something that everybody's doing now, getting into and really having fun with. I'm less aware of how people view it as a spectator sport. Do we even know where they're going to be playing yet?
So essentially what I understand is that it's going to be operated a little bit like the the lacrosse league that I don't know the name of it, the league off the top of my head, but the Barstool Sports has the Water Dogs. It's a league that like travels the country together and they play games over a week, I guess, at a facility or a weekend, or I don't. It's
So you're not traveling individual teams.
it's kind of
one-off.
like kind of like a like slam ball was set up, or like rugby, like sevens rugby is set up, where it's a weekend tournament, right? So I think it's going to be something similar to that. But I mean, I would imagine that, to me, pickleball is taking off, and the people that are getting into pickleball, it reminds me a lot of when I was like, 10 to 15 years old, and like all the people that were playing tennis were starting to like age out of that sport. Like all the older people, I guess. I don't want to like be mean, but like they were just getting older to where they couldn't play anymore. So it feels like that kind of like the start of what that became when I was 15 and 16, right? So I think it's a lot. And the great thing about pickleball is you can keep playing well into, I mean, the olds at the JCC are just absolutely murdering people out here. Like they are, like I fancy myself a decent player. They are crushing me. But yeah, you can play well into your 70s. I mean, it's not a lot of movement. It's way cheaper than tennis and golf. So it not only crosses age lines, but it crosses financial lines, class lines. So I think pickleball certainly is going to grow exponentially in participation. And I think that as long as they can do it in a financially viable manner, they can put it in front of people. I think this league has a chance to be really good. I would like to see, I was hoping it would be more of the World Team Tennis format, honestly, because I think that's the greatest format. I think the Olympics should move to that, honestly. And when pickleball goes to the Olympics, it should be in that format, and it will go to the Olympics. But yeah, I think it's, and of course, Chaffetz will be used for a tournament. I mean, in the coming years. Yeah. So that's revenue to the city, revenue to the school. And I mean, they could even do, actual like age group tournaments, right? Or like, class level tournaments. So I guarantee you we will see pickleball at Chaffetz Arena, high level pickleball.
That's awesome. Yeah. I didn't know what the announcement would be. I think people thought people thought NBA. Some people thought it was going to have to do with SLU's NIL collective.
So there's the tinfoil hat, right?
Right.
Somebody mentioned it, yesterday or today. I don't remember, but it was tax, like a shelter, an NIL shelter. It's because of the Yuri Collins announcement. And hey, if it works, it works, right?
Yeah, very quickly after this, you saw Yuri Collins tweet. So 2 days after this was announced, I'm excited to announce my newest partnership with the Chaffetz family of companies. As the nation's assist leader, I'm looking forward to repping Chaffetz Group, STL Shock MLP, and ComPsych. So yeah, just like that.
Oh my gosh. I'm excited, and hopefully pickleball at Chaffetz. So
yeah.
Pete, let's get into men's basketball. And Wednesday night around about 9:00, I'm driving, back to St. Louis, and I'm like Job Bluth. I've made a huge mistake.
Well, you weren't on a Segway, so you didn't do the full Job there.
That would have added some time.
Men's basketball got the 76-59 win at Loyola on Wednesday the 18th, but let's go through your travel adventures first, because you went up there the day before, but it sounds like you came home right after the game.
Yeah, so I should have probably gone up the day of the game and then driven back the next day. But unfortunately I went up a day early. I wanted to get some training in, at one of the gyms. So I wanted to make sure I was all that kind of stuff. Just with my schedule, it worked better to do that and kind of make myself miserable. But first, I stayed downtown on Magnificent Mile again. Huge mistake. I could have probably stayed further out for cheaper, but what are you gonna do? I was moving fast. I didn't think I was gonna go in the first place. But yeah, no, I really liked Gentile Arena. The alumni reception was very nice. Sliders, pretzel bites, chicken strips, some cookies, and then some beer that you appreciated, I think.
Half acre daisy cutter. That's good. It's a solid choice. I thought
there was no choice. It was either that or an IPA, and your boy don't drink IPAs.
All right. Well, nonetheless, I love a good daisy cutter.
Got it at Gentile Arena. Great intimate in-game atmosphere, man. The student presence there is at that capacity lot, like at that 5,000 seat arena. Like the students are intimidating, man. I was very worried going into that game.
Yeah, that's a nice layout. It's a nice renovation. We played up there right after I graduated when I was living in Chicago. So this would have been like 06, 07, or it may have been the first year I was out. So maybe 05, 06, but we played up there, SLU did. And this was, same structure, but they hadn't redone the inside yet. It's a lot nicer now than it used to be. The vibe in there before was, glorified. I mean, I don't want to say high school gym, but it would have been more like Bonaventure's Arena, or something like that. Just different color scheme, just not an impressive place at all. So it looks great on TV and in pictures and stuff like that.
Yeah, I will say the one issue I had with it was the concession stand. I had to leave. I had to go like outside, like to the concession stand, like, I don't know, 30 seconds before halftime. Like that final possession, I missed it. I was like, screw it. I'll go out there and stand in line. And they know there's a long line because they got TVs up. One thing I will say, they had their golf team has their like hitting cage right underneath the seats there. And then there's also part of the floor on the concourse is the middle logo from the old court, which I thought would have been cool if they would have done that at Chaffetz in some way, shape, or form. Like maybe turn the I don't know, like Lauren or the 1818 bar, if they use the hardwood from the old logo, that'd be sweet, or something like that. But not enough concession stands. But I liked the atmosphere, the energy in that place was really cool. But one thing I do have to mention is that it's easy to, if you're not paying attention, get run over by your own team's players. Because one thing that's different from Chaffetz is that the players go through the concourse to enter the court. And Zach was not paying attention.
It's like that at Hinkle too.
Yeah, I was not paying attention. I was not intoxicated because I was driving home, just extremely tired and anxious for the game to start. And I'm used to Chaffetz. And a woman physically had to put her hand on my chest to basically save me from getting run over by TJ. Which I'm going to be honest, as long as nobody got hurt, save for maybe me, I would have been fine. If like it would have actually happened and I would have got the camera footage, because it would have been the funniest damn thing I've ever seen. But thank you to that to the usher or security for saving my life.
So you almost physically ran into our players, but it sounds like you ran into a lot of other fans.
In a fashion,
and that SLU had a nice crowd there, it looked like.
Yeah, no, I did, but also I need to apologize to the lady in front of me. Everybody knows I'm loud and crazy at games, but like I took my phone out of my pocket, and of course Butterfingers fumbles it, hits her in the back of the head, and I am profusely apologizing. I am mortified. But yeah, it was, I felt so terrible. But yeah, so many Billiken fans there. The Chafitzes were there. Obviously, they're from the area. There was basketball alumni. There were other sports alumni. I saw Brian Daly. I was trying to see Elliot Welmer, but I had to go as he was coming in. But yeah, then there was, I actually ended up sitting next to swimming and diving alums Will Butsky and Chris Manley, who I know fairly well from my time at SLU. And then John Svigos, soccer alumni, who I definitely know. He showed up mid first half, so got to sit with those guys. Had a blast catching up with them. But so many Billiken fans, and we had pockets throughout the arena. You got to shout out, Gaines for starting the SAINT chant and did the da-da-da, just did the whole instrumental. But it was a lot of fun. There's something about there's something special about seeing Billiken fans on the road. Seeing him at an opposing arena, or even like, I mean, how special it was at Columbus, San Jose, Orlando for the NCAA. But I think there's something even more special about a road game, because it's like you're not expected to be there.
Yeah, I think that's true. It's exciting. You get a little charge out of seeing somebody else there who's kind of dressed like you, right? And when the colors are so different, like at Loyola, you really stand out when you're wearing blue and white. I remember when I went, and this is 10 years ago now, but when I went up to that game at Bonaventure, just a quick day in and out solo trip, and did the thing.
Said nobody ever about going to Bonaventure.
Well, it's 7 hours from Cincinnati, and because the game, I want to say it was at like 3 in the afternoon, or it was at the kind of time where I could leave first thing in the morning and get there in time, and then I drove back that night and got in at like 1 a.m. or something like that.
That sounds like a lot of McDonald's.
I don't
remember. Fast food in general.
No, I mean, I like to stop as little as possible, so like I'm one of those, like it was probably one stop each direction.
We did get into that a little bit off the pod, and it was, besides the fact that it rained horrifically on the way home, it was I had to stop so many times just to use the restroom. It was awful.
Yeah, I would not tolerate that. But
you barely tolerate this podcast.
the point I was getting to is that I was clearly the only SLU fan who was not one of the boosters who flew up on the charter, and they saw me and they were just like, no, come down here, come over here. So I sat in the front row behind the bench with our boosters at that game, talked to them, and it was just one of those things, like, to be in that arena and for them to see this other guy in blue walk in. They're just like, what is a SLU fan doing here in St. Bonaventure, New York, on what turned out to be a pretty snowy night? It was nice, but there is something absolutely special about being in hostile territory around your people. Really, really a good experience every time. I gotta say, from what I saw in the Loyola game, it looked like SLU had a really great crowd there. I know Chicago is a lot different than Western New York.
Yeah, it was a good crowd. I think at times you wished everybody was in the same spot, but that's never going to happen. And I wouldn't expect it to happen, I wouldn't expect Loyola to let that happen per se.
Yeah, that'd be hard to do. I mean, you just,
and I would expect
SLU
to never try to allow, opposing fans to be concentrated in one specific area. This was an interesting game though, Pete. Loyola was without St. Thomas. That's
his name. That's his name.
He leads the team. He left the team in the days leading up to the game, but he hadn't played prior. But the one person I will say on this team that did play, Alston. We talked about him with the Loyola guys. I was, with our propensity to be beaten by power forwards, I was ready for a loss the moment I walked into that gym and saw this kid, Alston. Wow. That dude is big.
Yeah, he's got quite a physique for somebody who's as active as he is.
Hassan French.
It's, he's similar in that he's just a very naturally imposing figure.
Yeah.
They're built a little bit differently. Hassan's more arms. You know what I mean? He's got those crazy
Alston's
arms,
shoulders and
you're right,
and back.
Right. Yeah. He cuts an imposing figure for sure. Loyola also, Marquise Kennedy is normally a starter, and he kind of played limited minutes off the bench all in the second half. So that should be noted. They were also without Dawson. I'm forgetting Dawson's first name. He's another kind of bench player, though, who normally doesn't play a whole lot. So Loyola was down a little bit in this game, just to kind of put that out there, get that caveat out of the way. SLU Zach shot really well in this game, though, and it was outstanding if you actually take Jimerson out of the box score, put a pin in that. But I'm not sure how much of that was purely on SLU just kind of having a good night, and how much could be credited to Loyola's defense. Their defense, Zach, is atrocious. Even when they went to a zone at times, and it may have been worse than their man-to-man. I don't get what they're doing defensively at all.
No, I will say that it was two of the worst defenses in that first 15 minutes of this game.
Oh God,
first
yeah.
10 to 15. I mean, I think I tweeted out, it's unforgivable to lose your man the way we would lose our man in that first half twice. And one ended up in a rim rattling dunk by Alston, and you run the risk of just giving those up. Again, I can be okay with giving up a 3 because you lost your man.
Right.
Giving up literally, not only he's wide open on the wing, but he's also got 20 feet of space to the rim to go in and dunk the ball. I mean, you're risking, not only is that 2 misses on defense, you're on the road. You're going to set the arena on fire.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. I remember looking up at one point and thinking, these teams are both shooting over 60% at a very disconcertingly late part of the first half. It's one thing if at the second media timeout, you're like, yeah, both teams are 6 for 10 or whatever. Hot start to this game. But it was later in the half, and they were both over 60%. I was just like, oh my God, what guys, we gotta play better defense than this. SLU did, to their credit, switch their defensive looks a few times, and it kind of seemed to work. Loyola, we talked about them having a solid start to the game, but they did go cold late in the first half, and it seemed like they never really recovered after that. Once they kind of went cold, you saw this one swinging. And even though it was a 2-point game at halftime, we came out in the second half, and it felt like it was clear which way this was. Sorry, 4-point game at halftime. 38-34 was the lead for SLU. But they really started to pour it on in the second half, and it seemed clear to me anyway. I don't know what the vibes were like in the arena, but it kind of felt like we were taking over.
Yeah, I think so. I think you look, I don't know if you get the same feeling, but I genuinely get a little bit of dread when I know that, when I go into Chaffetz and I know that the other team is going to have a lot of fans there. So I do get even more nervous going into the opposing arena, because I'm baby poop soft and emotionally, and I don't I get actually angry, not enough to lash out or anything, but it bothers me having other people cheer against my team. I don't it. I don't know how to describe it other than without sounding like a complete crazy person, but I hate when the other teams students go nuts. I was terrified that we were just going to get run out of the building early on. Every time they'd hit a 3, I'd be like, all right, that's it. I'm like Barstool Frank the Tank. I'm like, that's it. we're going to lose it, cancel the season, like with every 3 that Loyola would hit because their place would go apeshit.
It definitely got quieter as the half went on, though. I mean, like, it was clear, it came across clear early on that they really were prepared for this game. You know, like, we're 0-6 in conference. We've had a rough start, but this is our geographic rival. You know, like, this is different. We've got a team that's a 1-loss team in our place, and this would be a great way to turn the season around, a great chance. It was clear that they were prepared for that. That definitely came off.
It seemed like they only had a punch, though. Like, they didn't have a plan for the counter punch. They weren't prepared to have to shift their game plan.
Well, that's where the defense haunts them. You know, like, SLU is a good enough team to make you pay for it if your defense going to be that porous. To their favor, it's kind of weird how this worked out, because Collins, Okoro, Pickett, and Perkins, so 3 starters there, 4 players overall, all sat the end of the first half after picking up 2 fouls apiece. But weirdly, Zach, this is when SLU went on that 9-0 run to get that 4-point halftime lead that they built over the course of the second half. So it's weird. Like, once again, we're seeing a run with a lot of guys who are kind of your secondary players here.
Yeah, one thing that Billikens.com got into a little bit is, what do we have to do to start well, right? That's 2 straight games where we've had to dig ourselves out of holes. And I'm wondering if, like, the man-to-man defense on this team is not good. It's not good. I'm sorry, it's just not. I'm wondering if, you know, the problem with our starts is maybe Travis wants to see if our man-to-man will hold up early, but going to zone if it's clear that the man-to-man just is not cutting it. And that's where we're getting dug into holes, because our man-to-man is holding up. Our man-to-man held up against SIU Carbondale. We had a good start there. They turned the ball over too. But what do you think? Do you kind of get that feeling too?
I don't know if that's the case or not. I think it might just kind of be the makeup of this team. Like, think about the narrative that has kind of been built around them the last couple seasons, is that they can't hold on to leads. It's not necessarily that they're building the lead at the wrong time, or that they're not building enough of a lead early on. They're just like, no matter what the lead is, they're giving it up in the second half. The weird thing about this game, I mean, and you're right, it's 2 games in a row where George Washington in this one, not great starts, but then they go on a nice run to end the first half and start the second half. In the case of the George Washington game, held them scoreless in this time, and quite frankly needed to, the way that they came back. In the Loyola game, they did score a few times throughout this stretch, but it's kind of when we put them away, and luckily they never really did threaten after that. So I don't know. I mean, the slow start is one of those things. It might feel like that, but I can think of a lot of other games where we did hit some shots early, and it kind of felt like we were in the driver's seat, in control, and then eventually that didn't bear out to be true. So I don't know how true that is or not. I'd have to go back and kind of look at the numbers. But one of the things I liked about this game, this was a good rebounding game that actually felt like a good rebounding game.
Yeah.
And we haven't had a whole lot of those. We out-rebounded them by 15, 36-21, limited them to 3 offensive rebounds, and it was 0 at halftime. Really, really impressive performance on the boards in this game.
Yeah, and it wasn't like they were undersized, as we'll see when we talk about LaSalle. Loyola has Alston. I think they had one other big man, but they were really non-factors throughout the game.
Well, Bryce Golden and Tom Welch are the 2 guys who kind of traded off at the 5. I think collectively they played just under 40 minutes, but it seemed like they were kind of doing the Okoro Forrester thing, where they kind of split the position. So, look, Okoro and Forrester, they don't always make it look pretty, but they dominated those 2 in this game. Okoro had 8 and 10, Forrester 6 and 4, but the more important numbers here Golden who started at the 5, did not score. Welch had 1 field goal in 25 minutes off the bench and fouled out. And then Forrester had a dunk that that sent Golden down to the floor and probably had him questioning whether
that was a layup. That was a powerful layup, Peter.
Yeah, he kind of threw it in at the end there. Yeah, you're right. But yeah, so credit to Salu's bigs in this one for really, you're right. They're not a team that's small, but they did get shut down pretty decisively in this one.
Pete, we've been asking for road victories from this team.
Yeah.
And that's 4 road games down.
Yeah. And 5 to go. It's a great feeling to pick off a road win. And now you look at this and it's like, we into the beginning of the A10 conference. I think we talked about this. Was it before or after UMass, where we're just like, look, we're not a good road team. We haven't been a good road team inside or outside of the A10 under Travis Ford. I think we've 21-42 is the number that's coming to mind. So I think we were winning about a third of them. So that's a 3-1 start on the road. The UMass game is still disgusting, especially given how they've played after us.
Oh, we're gonna get into a little Frankie Martin.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we will. But you're right. It's a road win. And before we shut the door on this one, Collins came back in this one after missing the GW game. He wasn't 100%, but he played fine. He played well here. Perkins had his second excellent game in a row, 18 points on 9 of 7 shooting, 4 of 5 from 3. And then we hinted that Jimerson was off earlier. He was 1 of 7 from the arc, but did manage to be effective in other ways. 4 of 5 inside the arc, 4 rebounds, and a team leading 7 assists.
That's wild.
It is wild. And even though he had some first half turnovers, a little bit of jitters there, he settled into a really nice groove in the second half. And I think that carried over to this next game where we saw Jimerson a little bit quieter shooting, but doing a lot of other things well. And it was in a home game that we, a little bit up and down, but we wound up winning by double digits in the end.
Yeah, let's get into it. 84-71 win versus Fran Dunphy and his LaSalle crew on the 21st. It was alumni day. A lot of good dudes back in the building.
I always, I get the invite, former manager. I get the invite.
You know what? It totally, I forget in a really sad way that you were a manager, even though we've gone over it 5,000 times.
I bring it up a lot.
Yeah. Did you know I was volleyball manager too?
So I get the invite, and it always winds up being around this weekend. And for whatever reason, I've never been able to make this be the weekend that I visit. Not that the Chaffetz Arena faithful are clamoring to see me instead of some of the other people who showed up. But yeah, it looked like we had a nice alumni contingent there. And I talked to a couple other buddies who ran into some former players, and you love to see it, man. I mean, good crowd. Did you get to meet up with anybody before or afterwards, or get to say hi to any former players?
Yeah, I stopped down and just said hi to Mike Jones real quick.
Yeah.
But because that was
nice
one
guy.
Because we were talking, I did the St. Louis pizza thing, the real St. Louis pizza thing, the Peronis, Sarah's, Hall's Ferry Inn. So I dropped a little bit of that on my personal Instagram story, and so he had something to say about that, and so I wanted to stop by and say what's up to him. So, but it was good seeing him, and obviously good to see Sloan back in. Still got to give him trouble for his SoFi Stadium not allowing tailgating. That's very out of character for a guy like Sloan.
He's grown up. He's changed.
We're so proud of him. This first half stunk.
It was hard to watch.
It was terrible.
Yeah, not fun at all. I think we got down by as much as 10, if I'm remembering that right. But somehow this was a 1-point lead at halftime, and it's hard to play that bad and have a lead.
Well, I'll tell you what made this even like scarier is that like on my way down to Chaffetz, I leave like 35 minutes, 40 minutes before tip. It's a 20-minute drive normally. And there was unbelievable traffic on 48 Kings Highway. And so I walked in, I missed the anthem. Like I walked in mid like player announcements. I didn't see the Billikens get announced. So like I've already got that anxiety, like that I'm like about to miss tip off. And then we have the horrible first. It just added to my whole like, this sucks.
It's funny that you are the more punctual of the two of us when it comes to game times. Because I lived in the last time I lived in St. Louis, I lived in Shaw, and I could just drive down Compton with no traffic. And there were some street spots that I managed to get every time, a little bit farther walk, but I had it timed basically so I would just sit in my seat right after the national anthem, and like I would basically just sit down and it's like game right away. And the Larry Giovanni, who I mentioned before, who I sat next to, drives him crazy because he shows up an hour early, like he's there with the ushers, and here I am waltzing in right at tip of every game. So it's funny to hear you say like, oh my God, I thought you were going to say I missed the first 4 minutes or something like that.
No, so it's funny because it all stems back to when my uncle would take me to games. And like he would always pick me up like right after he got off work. So like at like 5:30 for a 7 p.m. tip, and we just go right to the arena from like North County. So we would be down there like 6 p.m. We'd be there before the gates opened.
Yeah.
Like that's ridiculous.
So it's like your ritual to get there and soak it up.
Oh yeah. So I mean, up until probably, I don't know, 5 years ago, maybe. I don't want to say 10 because I was literally still in college, but I think like a little bit after college was what I was kind of like, yeah, I got more important things to do in the lead up than just like sit in my seat. Like, what am I doing here? Like, I'm just watching them shoot around. Like, it's telling me nothing. So I try to get there about 10, 15, 20 minutes before tip. Yeah.
That's a sweet spot.
Came out cold in the second half here. Again, like you felt like our run was coming. Like it never felt like it was like never gonna happen. Like I knew our counter punch was coming, and it was just whether LaSalle would get back up.
Yeah, we had to remember who we were playing. And it was a weird change because we just talked about how in Loyola and George Washington, you've got those runs that bled from the late first half over into the second half. And it didn't happen at all in this one to come out cold. Then probably 8 or so minutes into the half, that middle of the second half is when we really started to kind of string buckets and stops together and get some really well-timed shots. We had those back-to-back threes. This is what really did it for me.
Yeah.
The back-to-back threes from Jimerson and Parker heading into the under 8 media timeout, that felt like that was it. Like LaSalle didn't give up. I mean, I think they kind of narrowed it a couple times, but they never really threatened after that. Those back-to-back threes put it up by a margin that kind of felt like it was it in this particular game. And it sounds like you feel the same way. Like that was kind of the moment.
Yeah, I want to pinpoint on Jimerson here because it really is what you're looking for, because we have so many weapons on this team as far as shooting, scoring in general, that not everybody's going to have a big game every time out. Not everybody's going to get 5-10 points. And what you really want from Jimerson is when he's not scoring at a volume, one of two, like comes on, hits his three, like takes the shot where he gets his shot and makes that shot. And certainly not go, one of two is kind of what you want out of him, I think.
It's funny because he plays 38 minutes.
I think that's what you want out of everybody. From three. Anybody who can shoot a three, if they're not getting their shot, when they do get the shot, you just want them to make 1 out of 2.
50% it's above average even for him. And he's only 3 of 5 from the field in this one. The surprising stat to me was he missed 2 free throws. He was 1 of 3 from the line.
That was one of those moments where you're like, oh no, come on, don't do this. Not today.
And right, but I think this was another one of those games where you don't see it in the score sheet at all, but he just did so many little things to help them win. He's been moving the ball really well, even if he doesn't wind up with the assist. The ball is just getting distributed so well. He's developed as a passer, and if he's playing bad defense, they're not gonna play him for 38 minutes either. So I think he was kind of holding up his end of the deal there. The real statistical oddity in this one, though, Francis Okoro posts the 17th 20 rebound game in program history, Zach. 12 points. He fouls out with a little over a minute and a half left, but that's a career high in rebounds, second most ever by a SLU player at Chaffetz Arena, and the highest in the A10 so far this year.
Yeah, I thought this was even more impressive because he spent time guarding Gill on the perimeter.
Yeah.
I mean, and I turned to my friend who I brought the game. I go, yo, like, they're pulling Okoro out to the perimeter, like, and he's still getting rebounds. I have no idea how this is happening.
Yeah, Gill's a tough matchup too. I mean, that guy's he's got nice burst. He's an athlete, like he had all 4 of LaSalle's blocks, and I want to say 3 of them were chase down blocks.
Oh yeah. Like I was screaming for a goaltend on both of them, and I was wrong on both.
Yeah, no, on the replays, those they were good. They were clean. I mean, he's a tough matchup to be pulled out to the perimeter like that, and Okoro did a good job on him. He was 4 of 12 overall, 0 of 2 from outside. Not that Okoro was out there the whole time on him, but yeah, he did a nice job at both ends on this one. And we've been complaining about rebounding all year, and he just completely ate up everything on the glass. The
STL Today article came
I
out
mean,
right. Yeah.
I was just going to throw it to you on that.
Right. No, well, I was going to throw it to you. I was going to intro the article and then give it to you. But do we think that like SLU should hire Stu Durando as like the de facto team therapist? Because it seems like every time a player talks with Stu about whatever personal issue they might be going through at the time, it's like they just get it off their chest, it's out in the media, and then they just go play.
It's amazing. It really is amazing. This article, to give people a little background, the headline really says it all here. Basketball gives SLU's Francis and Okoro an escape as his mother battles cancer in Nigeria. We've talked about before, Zach, how hard it is for international players. We've had players come over here who have not been home in a long time, whose families are never able to come visit, never able to come see them. They're not able to get back there more than once a year. It tops in some cases. And that's already so hard. And when you throw it on top of that she's battling cancer, and here he is playing, chasing his dream in the US, it's remarkable. I think the way I said this to you earlier was, this team, there's a lot of individual adversity going on, and we kind of look at things as a team level, right? And the team adversity seems to be, they just haven't played up to expectations. They've underperformed a little bit compared to what we thought they would do in the preseason. But individually, these guys have had some really gutting stories. And it just shows you, it reminds us that we have no idea what some of these guys are going through.
Yeah, one of the more positive things that are positive, kind of outwardly positive players on this team has been Sincere Parker. And you mentioned blocks from Anwar Gill. Nobody has impressed me more on the defensive end as it pertains to blocks on this team than Sincere Parker.
Yeah, he had a good one. He had a good one in this game. I think TJ ended up with 4 blocks overall. But
yeah, I somehow I think maybe I was also like attributing some of TJ's blocks to Sincere, but I mean, Sincere has looked really good when it comes to blocks.
Yeah, it's that burst again, right? I mean, he's not the biggest guy at all. but he has the ability to kind of explode pretty quickly on guys. And yeah, his blocks have kind of all been highlights this season. He's not racking them up, but he makes you remember them. It's kind of crazy because LaSalle was the best in the conference at blocks per game. They were leading the A10 in blocks per game in conference play. They end up with 4 in this one, and SLU had 9. So in addition to TJ's 4, Parker's 1, Perkins had 1, Forrester had 1, Okoro had 2. SLU really, punished them in that sense in this game.
This was an incredible offensive game too. You have 5 players in double figures. Should have had 6, but Gibson goes 0 for 2 from the line.
Right.
Literally everyone who played 15 minutes or more should have had 10 points.
Yeah, and the one to really circle here is Sincere Parker off the bench in 22 minutes. 20 points on 8 of 9 shooting.
Is that good?
I mean, yeah, I think if a guy's gonna shoot 88%, I think I would take that every game. 2 of his only miss was from 3. It was 2 of 3 from 3, 2 of 3 from the free throw line, and throws in 5 rebounds and that aforementioned block on top of it. It wasn't just his efficiency. It wasn't just his scoring ability off the bench. His energy has just, I mean, he looks so excited, so pumped when he hits a big shot in this game. And his shots have been so well timed in this game, in recent games at George Washington and Loyola. His makes could not be better timed. He's been exactly what we've needed, Zach, in these recent games. I think, I don't know if we win a couple of these without him.
No. You mentioned the energy, and one play that stood out to me in this one was actually the block, right? But it wasn't necessarily the block. It was kind of everything that surrounded the block, in that Parker had his man the guy had Parker 1-on-1. And Parker, I guess, had his hand out there to defend him, and the guy just swatted it away, like swatted his arm away. And then he tries to drive on Parker, and Parker just swats his shit. And Parker went like that. He did the same swatting motion that the player had done previously. But
maybe that's what he needs as a defender. Like Ford has been on him since he showed up at SLU about his defense, and maybe that's kind of his. He needs to play angry a little bit. He needs to play with that chip as opposed to just overthinking like what he's doing fundamentally on defense.
But on offense, though, I love his creativity, and his 1v1 on offense too has just been incredible. He's just been like, it's something that it's weird because he has a funky movement to him, right? He definitely, Javante has kind of a hitch when he moves.
Yeah.
Parker kind of, honestly, he looks like TJ Hargrove as a sophomore, like that kind of he somehow makes the baby deer thing work incredibly well. Like, you're worried about him turning the ball over, like if you don't know him.
Yeah.
But knowing him, you're like, okay, he's not gonna turn the ball over. Like he's not gonna over dribble.
Right. I haven't been able to fully figure out yet what it is about his movement that looks a little weird.
Idea.
It's like he
almost like he's unathletic.
He kind of brings his shoulders up, his shoulders and his upper body kind of raises them a little bit as he's running. It's almost like a rolling motion as he's going down the court. It doesn't look like he's going as fast as he is. But he has had a couple plays in recent games where he's taken it coast to coast.
The drive when Yuri was on the deck.
And you don't, that one too. And you just don't, you don't always think it's coming, but man, what a spark he's been lately. I've been so impressed with every facet of his game. I could not have come at a better time of the season either. Collins finishes this game with 17 points, 11 assists, 5 rebounds. LaSalle looked pretty content to try and let him score, and I think it mostly worked for them in the first half. But over the course of the game, they stopped getting away with it. He made both of his 3-pointers I think he was like 1 of 7 or something like that at halftime. He ends up 7 of 16 from the field, perfectly respectable line there. And like we said, 11 assists and 3 turnovers. He turned in a really good Yuri Collins performance here, Zach, in a box score too, where, we have said before, we don't always like him with double-digit shot attempts, but I think he kind of took what was given and eventually it started to pay off.
Yeah, I think, and I want to get your opinion on this, but I think there are going to be a lot of nights going forward. Well, not a lot because we don't have that many games left. Actually, we kind of do. But I think on nights when teams are just daring Yuri Collins to score, and making sure they're trying to cover everybody else on the court, we certainly, I think we can only afford him to go one half without scoring. He has to score one of 2 halves. Absolutely has to. He has to find his game. And one thing I noticed in this game is the point on the court where Yuri Collins becomes efficient scoring the ball. It is absolutely, his feet almost have to be touching the paint on a jump shot for it to be effective, or beyond the arc. Anywhere in between those 2 places, I never want to see him rise up.
Well, there's also the thing where a lot of his shots, it looks like he hesitates a half second.
Mm-hmm.
Like he can't believe how open he is, or like he's such a pass first guard, right? That he doesn't always trust the shot instinct. And I wish he would initially, because that first instinct is generally going to be the best one, and the best likelihood of scoring. You're going to be in rhythm. You're not going to be overthinking it. So I almost don't care as much where as when. Yeah, I want to make sure his shot selection is good from a timing standpoint and from doing it in rhythm.
Hargrove, man, like I said, again, I think every player just needs to do an in-depth article about whatever's bothering him off the court, because dude scored the first 7 points of the game, 17 points. Oh, sorry. 11 points, 7 boards. As I mentioned, the first 7 points of the game. And that alley-oop in the first half and the second half were chef's kiss.
Yeah, they were. The second half one was to end the game, basically. I don't have any look. If you have a shot clock at all,
yes,
shoot. Like don't take the turnover, don't dribble it out. And so Yuri threw the lob to Hargrove to finish that one, and it was pretty. And I know it looked good. I could tell it felt good. TJ,
you knew Hargrove was going to go over to the camera too.
Yes,
you knew he was headed straight for Jordan Eisler to get his mug on that video. Yeah,
he knows what looks good on social media. He really does. And he had the 4 blocks in this game. He played 28 minutes. His points kind of bookended the game, but he really brought energy throughout. And we talked, I've said before a couple weeks ago, like, you don't want to overplay him. 28 is a bigger number for him. But he really did good things in this game throughout. He kept his energy at a high level. He didn't turn the ball over. He didn't get in foul trouble. He didn't make bad decisions. He played a really good, clean game in this one.
6-1 are the Billikens in A10 play. This is the best conference start for a Travis Ford team. Pete, are we buying this as a viable statement?
I don't trust anything in this league at all this year. We do have kind of a situation, and we'll go around the A10 a little bit and get into the standings.
Let me clarify that toss to you. Are you trusting this start because of the backloaded version of this A10 schedule?
All right. So yeah. So I was eventually getting to
okay,
that.
I wanted to make sure we were on the same page.
We are. I mean, and that's the issue, right? It's like, we've seen, how many times have we seen narratives change, not just for us this season, but for the whole conference. I mean,
the bipolar nature of Dayton Twitter this season.
It's wild. VCU has been, and like, look, we in VCU both teams that are now tied in first in this conference with one loss apiece. Wild narrative swings this season. Dayton, crazy narrative swings this season. And those are the teams that have kind of emerged somewhat predictably as the top three. So I don't really trust anything. We still have to play Dayton twice. We still have to play at Davidson, as we'll talk about very soon. We still have to play VCU twice. We still have to play Richmond. I think we've got 2 more against Davidson, not just at their place. They come to SLU. All of those kind of top tier home and homes, they're still coming. And so we have to we really have our work cut out for us in this league. And you would love if that UMass game had gone a different way. It's still good to be 6-1, and everybody has rough nights in this league. But I'm just look, I like where we are right now in the league. I just don't trust anything that happens. I don't trust any team in this league this season. We just have to play good basketball. But kind of an odd thing, LaSalle, they're 2-4. They don't feel like previous LaSalle teams. Dunphy, I think, Zach, he kind of knows what he's doing a little bit more than previous coaches. I think they're going to win some more games, and they're going to be better moving forward in this league.
Yeah, I think he's a more with less type coach, much like Schmidt, obviously.
Yeah.
And that's his alma mater. I think like people said, when your alma mater calls, you answer. So I think LaSalle fans should be, happy with what they have building over there. You know who probably isn't so happy right now with their coaching situation, which is odd. Dude, did we not just talk about narrative swings?
I mean,
is this the biggest narrative swing of them all? Going all the A10 ones.
I mean, it's almost hard to quantify that, right? Because Fordham started like 12-1 or something like that.
Hold on.
And I know they didn't play anybody, right? And I know there's not a groundswell of like Fordham is actually great.
Well, I know it was all memeified.
Right. But yeah, UMass got off to a really good start this season, and things are not going despite the victory over SLU a few weeks ago. Things are not going all that well right now. And Zach, it seems like things got a little chippy with the press conference after that St. Joe's loss.
Yeah, I don't necessarily have it all in front of me because I don't care that much about Frank Martin and or UMass.
I do have it up to refer to just in case we had to.
Be fair, I did put a link in the
into the notes.
Yes.
But basically the gist of this, Zach, if I understand this, and I didn't watch the press conference, I kind of read about it. It seems like he must have faced a tough question, and he kind of went off about people being critical of his players on social media. It seems like that was more or less the gist of it, and that he kind of put it into fighting words, so to speak.
He is the Takeshi 6ix9ine of tough guys.
You're gonna have to explain that reference for people.
Takeshi 6ix9ine's a fake gangster. Like his whole thing was his brand was pretending to be a gangster. And Frank Martin is like fake, like mobbed up guy, right? Like that's his whole persona. He's got this pinstripe suit, the bald head, the bicked head. I just think he's like, he wants to be like an enforcer so bad.
I don't know what
great
what he...
now he's gonna put a bomb under my car. That's what's gonna happen now.
I guess we are, online fake media of a sort.
But we are. This is purely entertainment, everybody.
I don't know if he's going to discover our remarks buried in a lengthy podcast specifically aimed at SLU fans. But
I'm pulling the video.
He did seem pretty upset about, just what people are saying. Now, he made it sound like he's not so much upset about what they're saying about him, but about his players. And yeah, I think he probably may have kind of crossed a line in sort of what he said about fans in general, or more specifically what they deserved.
I guess I can just read it off, honestly. Let me pull it up here. The crazy person. Before St. Joe's on Thursday, there's some people that have opinions on social media that I've dealt with personally already. And believe me and them will have man-to-man when the season is over. The hell?
Yeah.
Like, what?
I know.
I like, is he talking about Curry Hicks Sage? Like, what? Who? He's not talking about media members here. He's talking about people.
I think he's literally just talking about people on social media.
Good Lord.
Yeah.
I don't create problems. I treat people with respect, but anyone that comes after my players by name, being critical of them, me and them got a problem for life. Anyone comes after my family, me and them got a problem that's going to get fixed. So, who's coming after his family?
Yeah, literally no one. I don't think that's real.
It's a shame when people claim to be UMass people. What do you mean, UMass people? And they want to be negatively critical of college kids that are being demanded to go to class, to work, to come in the gym day and night to become better players, and people attack them personally on social media. I mean, it's this is where you help your players grow by telling them that, by guiding them through the process of dog shit people on social media.
Yeah, they get trained on this before every season.
I mean, I'm not saying that people who go on social media and bitch about, you saw, the thing about it, it almost feels like Frank Martin, and I hate that I'm about to use this word because it's been used to death in politics, but emboldened. Frank Martin was emboldened by what Anthony Grant did. I feel like Frank Martin thought that he sounded like Anthony Grant because Anthony Grant went on that little rant about, not a rant, I don't want to call it a rant because it was legit. People were upset with Dayton players after Dayton didn't cover the spread or whatever, and then went and DM'd them and yelled. And I'm not even, okay, sorry, I don't even say Dayton fans because, I mean, gamblers in general are just psychotic, right? Dudes that you're psychotic if you're doing that anyway, but to bet so much that you have to go on Twitter and yell at a player for not covering, you need counseling for your addiction. I purposefully went on social media after the VCU game. Well, there's your first freaking problem.
Right.
Just don't.
Right.
Because I kind of had a feeling people I knew, that I knew people were going to be commenting. People want to say that I don't run good offense. They want to share the offense I should be running. You haven't had a top 200 offense since 2012, according to one tweeter. So I would probably sit down and shut up on that one. Believe me, I ain't losing a second of sleep over it. Well, you're complaining about it in a press conference. So, okay. People want to say my substitution patterns stink. They don't like how I scream. I get it. Be my guest. I'm not losing sleep over tonight, but over me, am I going to have anyone come after my players and degrade them with negativity when all those kids do is sacrifice their minds and bodies for the benefit of the university? That one ain't ever happening. I get that. I get what you're saying there, but again, you're a fake tough guy. If he's been on social media directly, if he's seen social media affect his players directly, yes. If not, I wouldn't speak about it. They're children. No, they're not. And for people to come after them, vilifying them, degrading them, I ain't the one, man. I ain't the one. I don't know what that means. My job is to help these kids and demand that they do things the right way. Take my word for it. Nobody demands that they work more than me. You know what? I'm done reading this trash. This dude's nuts. And I'm not going to lie. Joey Aliberti, who tweeted it, I don't even know how he transcribed this. I'm hoping it was off a radio. Otherwise, he needs to find a job as a stenographer. Because this is impressive.
Yeah, but the one thing that's interesting to me here that he keeps coming back to is if you do this, he kept saying me and you got a problem, and
Nobody
this is
cares.
it's one of those things where it's like it just seems like he's kind of like threatening
It
people
is
on
very
social. It's just
threatening.
don't I don't know. To me, this is the kind of
It's
thing
not about the players. This doesn't feel about the players.
right. Like
This feels about a Frank Martin issue.
and that's kind of you mentioned Anthony Grant, and I think there are things that coaches do and say that kind of you roll your eyes at, but you realize they're doing it for their players, they're doing it for their locker room. Anthony Grant is actually pretty good at that kind of thing. This was weird, and like it didn't feel like the kind of thing that the players are going to rally around necessarily. It just sounds like maybe somebody who's a little bit older and doesn't quite know how to handle this aspect of being a public figure in 2023. And it was just kind of sad to see. And anyway, I hope people learn from this and that other coaches don't fall into this trap.
Pete, let's go around the A10. Just facts only. I think we got a couple games we'll probably talk about.
Yeah.
St. Joe's 71, LaSalle 59, George Washington 78, George Mason 75. That was Monday the 16th. Tuesday the 17th, Richmond over Rhode Island 64-57. Dayton beats Davidson 68-61. VCU beats UMass 83-55. Wednesday the 18th, Bonaventure beats Duquesne 65-56. The battle for Richmond on Friday 10, 74-62. VCU takes that one. Saturday, George Mason beats Rhode Island 79-72. Dayton, are they going to go 19-0, 18-0?
Yeah.
Undefeated in conference?
What seed will they get when they go undefeated?
Oh gosh, who knows? Oh no, they lost to George Washington and Foggy Bottom 76-69.
And that 7-point deficit is actually closer than it was most of the game. It was about a 9 to 11 point margin, just about the whole game.
Yeah.
Really, really weird game to watch.
Saturday, the 21st. We're already there. St. Joe's beats UMass 74-68. Fordham 65, Duquesne 58.
At Duquesne.
You know what? Duquesne is another one of those that got kind of hyped up there for a minute. That's really coming back down to earth.
They were picked to finish last in the A10 this season, and then proceeded to have a much better than expected non-conference, and then got a couple wins early-ish in conference and really seemed to be flying high. But yeah, I think they're just going to have games like this where people just kind of remember why they thought what they thought of them to begin with.
This is I don't think this bodes well for their ability to get Bronny.
I don't think that's happening. I would love to see it, but I don't think it's happening.
The final game of the Saturday slate completed the circle of sicko. Loyola gets their first A10 win. 67-55, a battle of the two oddest colors in the A10.
Yeah, St. Bonaventure brown on Loyola maroon and gold.
The Gryffindor golden scarlet or whatever you want to call it. Pete, walk us through the standings in the A10.
We've got SLU and VCU tied at 6-1, still have to play each other twice. Dayton is right behind them at 5-2, and then George Washington shockingly has that fourth double bye spot right now at 4-2. George Mason right behind them would have that fourth spot had they not lost earlier this week. 4-3, as is Richmond and Bonaventure. They're all 4-3. Fordham is 3-3, perfectly respectable for that set of Rams. Duquesne 3-4. So like you said, coming back down to earth a little bit, and they're tied with St. Joe's who's maybe outperforming expectations in conference, honestly, at 3-4. LaSalle is about as good of a 2-4 team as there's been in the league, I think. UMass is now down to 2-5. Of course, one of those two is over SLU, sadly enough, and they're tied with Davidson and Rhode Island. Davidson shockingly down there at 2-5. If
That's so
me,
weird to see.
very, very weird to see, and they're 9-10 overall. And Loyola Chicago holding up last place there with 1-6.
The Survivor picks, Pete.
Ugh.
We're done. Are we done or finished?
We're not done because you're moving to the second chance bracket, and if the podcast wins on the 24th, that one is still alive in the second chance bracket. So the only one that's officially done as of this recording is me. I'm out.
Yeah, unfortunately we won't be making the podcast budget in this pool. But hopefully thanks a lot, Dayton. I can't believe that lost. I really cannot.
Well, let's recap these, because last week you had Richmond over Rhode Island correctly and got that one. For the show, we chose Dayton over Davidson and got that one. I had Mason over GW and lost that one. And I'm a little bitter over that one. And then you're cursing Dayton for their performance against GW on the 21st. You took them on the road in that one. So now you moved to the second chance bracket. I took Duquesne over Fordham, holding home court over Fordham on the 21st. And now I'm out. As I imagine some other people went out on that one. And then we still have the podcast pick to stay alive in the second chance bracket. And that would be Davidson over LaSalle.
And that one I'm absolutely not confident in at all.
No, not necessarily. I think the good news there is that means that Davidson has a 2-day turnaround time before they host us.
Yes.
So I like the fact that we're playing a weaker than usual Davidson on less rest than usual. I don't like the fact that we're playing at Belk Arena, but we will get into that.
Up next, it's the unanticipated trip to Belk Arena for the men's basketball team. Can we exercise the demons of Davidson?
If we don't, then I'm convinced that arena is built on, some sort of burial ground.
A Billiken burial ground.
A Billiken burial ground. We've upset the spirits of the past, and they're there to haunt us. But like we just said when we were going through the standings there, Davidson's only 9-10 this season. Very out of character, 2-5 in the league. They do have that game at LaSalle prior to the SLU game on Friday, so they could be 500 by then. Who knows? They started out 6-1. They had good wins over San Francisco and South Carolina, but then lost a couple close ones to Charlotte, which was a wild game, and Delaware. And they've kind of lost steam since then, despite playing Purdue close when Purdue was #1 in the country. Matt McKillop's the head coach now, taking over for his father, Bob, whose name is on the floor. Big shoes to fill. Foster Lawyer, with SLU fans know him. He was there last year. He runs the show at point. He's averaging 15.5 a game, 4.5 assists, 4.7 rebounds a game. He's more of a scoring threat than Yuri Collins, especially from outside. So he does have the ability to kind of go off. They've also got Sam Menenga, who's averaging about 15.5 a game, 7.5 rebounds. He's kind of your typical Davidson stretch big, another guy we know from last year. Desmond Watson is another one who was there last year, didn't play as much, so we probably aren't as familiar with him, but he's their third leading scorer, averaging just over 10 points a game. He's gotten a lot better as the season progressed. He's actually scored 13 or more in every A10 game, except their game against Loyola. So he's definitely one to watch. Rounding out the rotation, you've got another returner, Grant Huffman, David Skogman, who was kind of a highly sought after transfer big from Buffalo, Reed Bailey, who was a higher than typical recruit for Davidson out of the Northeast, and then Connor Kuchera, who's a transfer from William and Mary. All of these guys are averaging 6-ish points a game. I think you can kind of make the argument that they're, not living up to expectations, or they just haven't seen enough out of these guys yet. But Davidson doesn't really get production outside of these top 7. They're really weak inside. They're not a good rebounding team. They're almost dead last in all of D1 in blocks. So our bigs have to be tough here and stay out of foul trouble. Davidson's kind of that finesse team, they're soft, but they can bait you into fouls, and they are pretty skilled. This would be a great time, by the way, for Okoro to kind of build on what we saw against LaSalle, show some momentum. They don't shoot as much as they used to. They used to just be that team who rains threes. It's funny because this just feels like a Davidson team that's missing a couple of guys, right? 7-man rotation. They really get a lot out of their top 3, but not a whole lot out of 4 to 7. It just feels like they're a guy or two short from what they typically are, and that feels like the difference. Even if they're down a little bit, it's SLU, it's Davidson, it's Belk Arena. The game's on national TV. We more or less know how Davidson plays and what they do to us in that arena, so anything can happen. But God, it feels like this would be the perfect opportunity to, as you say, exercise those demons and finally get that win at Belk.
Their roster page stinks. It automatically defaults to like just the picture of each guy. Why I'm thinking there's a guy that just Hyung Lee, he went to the NBA. Okay.
Yeah, they had Lee, Grady's been gone a couple seasons now. They had Brakovic usually hurt us. He's kind of the starting 5, but he was a stretch 5. So they who was the other guy? Mike
Goodmanson.
No, he's been gone for a while. Ingvi's older brother.
Yeah.
They had another guy who hurt us the last couple of years. His name was like Mike, really basic name, Mike Smith or something. Like I think he transferred out to Stanford.
Michael Jones.
There you go. Yeah.
Mike who?
Wait, was it Jones?
It was Mike Jones.
It was Jones. Okay, all right. Yeah, so he's the guy who has also kind of killed us last year, but it just feels like they still have those kind of dudes, just not as many.
It feels like, so I'm looking at even going back to last year, and you look at their guys that, again, Hyung Lee left, Mike Jones, Bochi Edam's not there anymore. Those are guys that were like big time impactful for them against us. So again, like you said, they are missing people, I think. So Pete, let's go into the trivia question of the week. One person got it right, and one entity got it right.
Yeah, so this was your question, Zach.
Yes.
Last week. You asked, what do the following Billiken season records have in common? 8-21, 12-14, 13-14, 5-23, 5-23, 16-14, 16-13. Why don't you give us the answer?
Yes. All are from the first season of a new conference for the Billikens.
Yeah, and apologies. I totally forgot to do this earlier in the week. I had another hell week at work and just did not do as much on Twitter this week. But it did look like we got a couple people, even though I just posted it this weekend, who got it right. Yeah.
So we stumped Joel Hall. So I'm pretty proud of that. We got, I'm trying to think who else put in a guess, but I'm going to give it to the individual on this one because West Pine Bills guessed it right. But the fastest Billiken baseball player of all time, Mike Hulsman, guessed new conference. And yes, it was the first year of a new conference for the Billikens in each of those seasons. So that was spurred on by the fact that we were playing Loyola Chicago in their first season. And we did get a message, kind of second guessed kind of what I was doing when I put out a tweet about Loyola and, their record in each sport. So essentially they brought up George Mason, and I think we should get into it another time because we've gone on way too long at this point, but they brought up how bad George Mason's been. And I think they've been so bad I forget they exist. If they didn't have such an online presence on Twitter as far as their fan base goes.
Yeah, I've really come not to like the, even if there are individuals there who I like, their fan base, their school, whatever in general, I've come to really not like it at all. They seem kind of I don't like the vibe out of there at all. But yeah, we should get into that another time. George Mason, like VCU, a program that got the call up to the A10 after going on a Final Four run, trying to capitalize on momentum, and never really did. So it's not out of the question that they could, but yeah, they missed their chance to build on that Final Four momentum for sure.
Speaking of hype, Pete, you know what gets me hyped? 2 Men in the Garden.
It does. Do we want to do the next week's trivia question first, and then we'll get hyped?
Son of a mother. No, let's leave them guessing. Let's give them an ad break.
All right, yeah, let's do it. Yeah, two men and a garden. Man, it's always enough to get you hyped. And one of the things I think people need to be thinking about now is I don't think we're actually allowed to use the name in advertising. Everybody says the big game, but we do have the Super Bowl coming up, NFL coming.
Oh God, we're getting sued. That's all right. Well, we know some good SLU law guys.
Look, we're not getting sued. We're gonna plead that we are media members and that we're not actually 2 Men in a Garden. But regardless, I think if you're gonna prepare for the big game, whether it's the AFC or NFC championship or any other game, or the big game that's happening on February 12th, you need to be ready. You need to have a full stock of dips for your guests. And a great place to do that is with 2 Men in a Garden. You can pick up their stuff locally. Schnucks, Straub's, anywhere in the St. Louis area, the wine and cheese place, or you can pick it up at 2meninagarden.com. So as you're preparing for the big game, make sure you're ready.
Yeah, one little thing, you could, make some burgers, put some fresh cut pickles on those burgers. That's something you might not think about.
I like the way you think. Yeah, like one of those on a little slider, tray of sliders. You've got the.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
This week's trivia question comes courtesy of Peter Hale. Francis, why don't you go ahead and read it? I don't know why I was about to take it.
Francis Okoro registered the 17th 20 rebound game in SLU men's program history. How many players got the other 16? So how many different players have those other 16 20 rebound games? Yeah, we'll post this earlier in the week this time and make sure we give people more time to think it over.
We got a really exciting treat for you guys. We spoke with Colin Suhre, good friend of the show, voice of Billiken women's basketball, about that women's basketball team. And we're going to kick it over to that interview right now. Billiken fans, we're playing at Davidson on Friday, on the men's side. On the women's side, it's also a Belk basketball week. And since there's no podcaster from Davidson, we're bringing on our good friend, Colin Suhre. He is the voice of Billiken women's basketball, baseball, softball, and volleyball. And he has been embedded deep with the SLU women's basketball team this season. Colin, welcome to the show, man.
Peter and Zach, hello. And Billikens fans, hello as well.
Yeah, I was fortunate enough to learn a little bit from a pro like yourself this past week. We called the McKendree well, I should say you called the McKendree basketball game, and I was just a chucklehead on the side.
No, we had a fun time together, and we had a barn burner of a game. So I hope it was a good first GLVC experience for you. There's some really good local basketball around here, aside from Division I and some of the stuff we'll get into with St. Louis.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to the next game. Do we
need to make sure Zach can't hear for the next couple minutes, and then we can actually go over how the game went, Colin?
Well, I'll tell you what, your boy got more and more comfortable as we went along, but like I said, I mean, we had an awesome time. It was so much fun. We kept it loose, and I think that's what fans enjoy too, right? You want somebody who's feeling it from a fan experience along with you. And I think Zach certainly captured that vibe.
Well,
I'm
thank
kind of
you.
picturing a younger Fred Willard from Best in Show, if either of you have ever seen that. I don't know who that
I
reference is
haven't,
for.
but
Yeah.
Zach was hitting me with the references all day, and I felt a bit like you, Peter. I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna chuckle and keep it moving along because I have no idea what this man's talking about over here.
Smile and nod is how people deal with me on a day-to-day basis. Oh, dude,
Well,
no, it was a blast though. And yeah, I felt like I just started reacting to plays like I was watching And1 mixtape tour. Like I channeled my inner hot sauce on that. It was fun though. It was, and hey, McKendry Lewis, that was a great game.
It sure was fun. Came down to a potential buzzer beater, but luckily for the good guys, it went begging.
Bizarre ending. If you get a chance to go watch that ending, it's why you never save the ball underneath your own basket. So
Blue's been bitten by that a couple times recently. I don't get it.
Colin, let's talk women's hoops, women's Billiken hoops. They're coming off a 68-63 loss at Duquesne on Wednesday, the 18th. Pete, run us down what happens, and then we'll kick it over to Colin and we can get his take on the whole matter.
Yeah, Colin.
Yeah,
so,
sorry, apologies.
Yeah, just to kind of give you a little, to give our listeners a little rundown here. This game on Wednesday the 18th, the second half overlapped with the men's game a little bit, which kind of felt, I don't know, a little unfair because the second half is really when everything happened in this game. They got into that 26-8 hole in the first quarter. Duquesne added another 3 to the lead by halftime, and then SLU nearly caught up in the second half, outscoring the Dukes 45-29. McMakin hit a 3 to bring it to within 3 with 10 seconds to play, and then Duquesne hits a pair of free throws, and that's it. She ends up with 14 points on 4 of 20 shooting, 1 of 9 from 3, so that one at the end was her only make from outside. Martinez, 10 points on 3 of 13 shooting, 1 of 5 from 3. You got to think it's a much different game if those two are hitting. Martinez always does a lot of other things, though, the rebounding, the steals, the assists. You've got Brooke Flowers with another double-double and 4 blocks. The thing that I always look at with this team and that was on stark display here is they just never seem to quit. Like, I know they've faced it's a first-year coach. They faced a lot of challenges. They've got a really tough schedule. But they really never quit. That's something that stands out to me, and I'm sure you're nodding along right now, so it seems like you agree as well, Colin.
Oh, there's no question. It's really been a talking point of late when I've been speaking with Rebecca Tillett, the head coach in her first year coming over from Longwood for the St. Louis University Billikens, that this group remains positive amongst a set of different adverse circumstances. Unfortunately, they found themselves in this position a couple of different times, and you could look at it from 2 different sides of the same coin, right? Well, we keep falling down big in these second halves and having to mount these comebacks. But same thing against Wichita State, down by 27 in the ability to bring it back to 1 possession. While those things they might not show in terms of a win or a loss right now, I think those types of winning characteristics, if you can build your culture around that in the long run, that's going to be extremely valuable for this team. And I think they've certainly built a foundation of those toughness qualities that have been so important to Coach Tillett as well.
Yeah, that's it's good to hear that you say like they're not kind of losing the faith, because that to me is always, I've seen this happen up close where the season doesn't go the way you think it's going to go, and people can get down, especially some of your players who are veteran players kind of on their way out. They start thinking about their next steps instead of what's right in front of them. One of the things that has kind of stood out to me this year is there are a lot of times they really struggle to shoot the ball. It's not they're a good free throw shooting team, but like both from 2 and 3, they're not an efficient shooting team. And I'm wondering, what have you kind of seen in terms of what they're working on there? What's the messaging there? How do you keep a team that is just struggling to score focused on their shooting?
Well, I can tell you that Kyla personally, through some of these games where she hasn't been as efficient, has kind of taken it upon her shoulders to really be a gym rat throughout all of this. She's getting up extra shots. She's working with Coach Ryan Micheletti, different coaches, different players on just getting those extra shots, trying to stay confident because she's the type of player that, what she brings to the table, if she doesn't have that level of confidence in her outside shot, and when you look at her big games, all of them have underlying good 3-point performances to them. So knowing that, just trying to draw up different looks to get her good looks in that first quarter, when she gets those nice opportunities from the 3-point line, and sometimes they don't fall. That's the way this game works. But when she gets those good opportunities early on, she has the potential to have those big games that have helped boost this team on the offensive end, where, a lot of talk in the preseason about this being an offensive team, and they do score a good amount of points. But you look at some of the things they do, offensive rebounding, forcing turnovers. So more of those specialty stats is really where this team has found their strength as the year has gone on.
I find it interesting that, McMakin has been, she's either unbelievable or she's I don't even know why she's shooting at some points. But so it seems like this team, she's still the go-to player in situations where they need a bucket. I mean, have you seen anyone try to step up into that role other than McMakin, or is it just solidly hers?
I think, it depends on what the team needs in the moment, right? If it's a defense that's packing it in, which if you look at the overall numbers with what this team has done this year, that's going to usually be the first approach against this team is, hey, prove that you can hit that 3-point shot, and then we'll start closing out harder on you on the 3-point line. But when this team needs an aggressive move towards the basket, Julia Martinez has really upped her aggressiveness level. She just won Player of the Week a week ago, and she shot over 70% in the process from the field. So her uptick in efficiency, getting to the rim, has been a huge help. But it's still Kyla McMakin. When this team needs a bucket from the outside, or you're trying to draw up a good look from the 3-point line, you feel like maybe you can get a flare screen working to the weak side of the floor and get somebody a good look, you draw it up for Kyla. And I think she's one of those players that, she's proven that she's going to have some of these spells that are less than ideal from a shooting perspective, but she's also going to explode and have those big games. And if you don't stay committed to getting her those looks, you're going to limit her ability to have those explosive games that you really need on the offensive end when you look at this team collectively.
You get the idea that the players buy into that as well, that it's not just the coach who has been with her the last few years at Longwood and seen her get it done, but everybody's, on board with that.
Yes, I think there's a total buy-in just from a broad standpoint with this team. I think Rebecca Tillett has quickly earned the respect from an individual level with each of these players. And that kind of translates to, what's the overall plan for each individual, and not only buying into your role, but buying into each other's role as well, which is something that I think, maybe we take for granted. Okay, you know what you're supposed to do, but are you in total agreement with how everybody else is being utilized on the team? And I think that this team really has an unselfish characteristic to them, across the board with all of these different individuals. You look at the Brooke Flowers, the Julia Martinez, all these different players that have a really high academic load on their plate as well. And I think there's just a big maturity from that standpoint. I think you can't take that on being an exercise science major, doing clinicals in your free time while still being an all A10 player in regards to Brooke Flowers. And, that leadership really kind of resounds throughout this team because it's a veteran group, despite there being a lot of new players on this team. A lot of the transfers are grad transfers, senior transfers coming over from Longwood, and that maturity has served them well in terms of, even when the result hasn't been there, buying into that process and knowing that if you continue to do the right things, that eventually you're going to see that success. And I think it helps that, throughout the season, they've seen that come to fruition in certain games, in certain bounce back performances after a disappointing loss, to be able to come back and win a game at home against a team like Illinois State that has a chance at winning the Missouri Valley this year. So they're starting to see those type of results, and they buy in from that perspective. The next step is trying to build that winning streak, getting those wins on the road that you can kind of bank on and then add to some home performances together. And I think that will really start to see this team's winning percentage start to get near 500 once again, because I think they've got a run in them in this second half of A10 play, starting to see some of these pieces gel and the confidence rise from some of the younger players as well.
You mentioned about how quickly Rebecca earned the respect of the players on this team, and I'm kind of curious, what does that look like? What does she do? What that kind of gets her players to buy in?
Well, she starts from the top down. We talk about this team remaining positive. She has remained positive throughout all of this. I mean, I've dealt with a lot of different coaches, and it's tough sometimes to have that attitude of, hey, turn the page and we're going to worry about the next thing, and just being as good as we can be at that next thing. And Rebecca Tillett really embodies that. And she comes from, a background of teachers and just that mature level of trying to pass down information to others. And she's able to, put the emotions, which we all feel when we do less than what we want to do in anything. Even if you're very successful, those moments of disappointment are tough to take if you're a very competitive person, like I know that she is. But she just has this ability to really look beyond all of those things in the moment and understand what's best for the team moving forward. And I think the way that the players have kind of taken it upon themselves to have that same exact attitude is the reason what I was telling both of you earlier, why I think this team is going to experience a lot of success in the future. Once they start to see it, once it clicks, it's really going to be a foundation of something that they can rely upon for the long run.
So I'm curious about the future a little bit, because I'm looking at this roster, and if I'm not mistaken, is Flowers the only player who absolutely has no eligibility left?
That is correct.
Have you gotten indications yet from some of the other veteran players? Because there are more seniors or redshirt juniors or whatever. Have they been public yet with what you think they're going to do next season?
So I have spoken with Kyla McMakin, which obviously would be at the top of that list, figuring out whether she's going to come back or not on this team. And she has told me explicitly that she is going to utilize that extra year of eligibility and come back to the team and play this year. She said she's taken a little lighter load with her classes to spread things out and then finish up next year with her degree and play another year. And then, of course, the other name that everyone would be thinking about is Julia Martinez. And from what I understand with her, I don't want to be totally concrete with Julia, but the idea is that she is coming back again for another year as well. So those are two really big players that you have coming back from the guard position. You add in Kennedy Calhoun in what we've seen from her, already a really great player when she came in, but just throughout the course of this season, watching her grow a little bit on the offensive end, this team is going to have a great pool of players in the backcourt to start with without bringing anyone else new in to start next year.
I do want to just correct myself there too. I think Camry Clegg would be the other one. I don't think she has any eligibility left. From what
I understand, she actually does have eligibility left.
Everyone, you got eligibility.
Find out one way or another.
Everybody gets eligibility.
It's a little bit like that, but I'll tell you what,
I check to see if I have
it's so cool to see these players take advantage of that. I talk about some of these players being really good on the academic side of things. Camry Clegg already has 2 degrees, already has a master's, and she's going for another right now. So, just off the charts smart, so many of these different women, and really a great role model for other young women in the community. And that's what makes me so proud to be able to get to call games for them, is just see what terrific individuals they are beyond the basketball players that they are as well.
Yeah.
So that's a perfect segue into my next question. We got to chatting on Wednesday night after the Loyola game on my preposterously long ride home from Chicago about Rebecca Tillett and her staff, and just kind of, we were just shooting the shit. And you mentioned their work ethic. And you talked about Camry Clegg's work ethic in the classroom. You said basically that Tillett and her staff really don't stop.
It's like nothing I've ever seen. Everyone that I talk to around the program, they say it's like nothing they've ever seen. I mean, she is tireless in what she is doing. And, even at that point, I've heard, at times people say, well, hey, they're working so incredibly hard, like, are the players getting every ounce out of that? I think, again, it's that leading by example, right? When your players look over to you on the bus and, they wake up, they peek one eyelid open for a second out of taking a nap, and hey, there's coach going to work trying to make sure she puts me in the best position come the next game for me to be successful. I think that goes a long way, and it goes back to that trust factor that she's been able to earn with these players so quickly coming over from Longwood. And it's a situation too where you bring 4 of your own players, and there are other players on this team, existing players, that feel like maybe, hey, I'm fighting for that playing time, and maybe there could be friction from that standpoint. But it's really been impressive to see the way that she's gotten that buy-in because of how genuine she's been in everything that she's done, whether it be finding the playing time for different players and who deserves it, and down to, the little things like setting the example with that work ethic. When you want to tell your players, hey, you need to get into the gym and get that extra lift in a day. You need to go into the gym and get those extra 500 shots up a day. It's hard to say that to them when they don't see you doing the same thing. And Rebecca Tillett can certainly say that she is putting in the work.
Looking ahead at the schedule, it seems like they have really covered a lot of the top half of the league already, or maybe a slightly stronger weight to the beginning of the schedule. You said you see a run in them. I mean, they've got Davidson, they've got Fordham coming up. Those are 2 of the better teams in the league, it looks like right now. And then things kind of do seem to get a little bit easier from there. You think, what kind of record do you think this team is capable of in conference the rest of the way, if they play like you think they can?
I think they can certainly flirt with that 500 mark in conference play. But again, to get there, this team is going to have to show the ability to not only win one of those big games, but string them together. And I think a lot of that does have to do with the schedule that they have played thus far. I think when you look through the conference slate and some of their games, St. Joe's is a really tough team, but even by this Billikens team standards, they wanted to play a better game than they did against the Hawks in that one. But the one game that you really circle is that Loyola Chicago game that they played so far in conference play, where they really just didn't quite live up to what they want to be in their standards as a team. And if they can start to eliminate that type of game, which haven't seen it in 5 games previous, which is a good sign, then I think that'll go a really long way, because there are some opportunities against teams that, you look at the net rankings and the strength of schedule that SLU has played. Maybe their record doesn't match up with whoever they're going up against, but their resume certainly does. So
Right.
By the looks of things, it's a little bit deceiving where this team is really at. And I think that will buoy out a little bit once you start to see, that stretch of games. I think it's George Mason at home into a road game against St. Bonaventure, and then Dayton as well. And they already beat Dayton at home. That's an opportunity for maybe a little 3-game stretch to make some noise for these Billikens.
So next up for the women's basketball team, they head to Davidson on Wednesday, the 25th, and then back home for Fordham on Saturday, 28th. I know you, the pro that you are, I know you already know everything about Davidson and Fordham. So lay it out for our listeners, man.
So this Davidson team, they've got a couple of really good bigs that are going to challenge your physicality, but they bring a good amount of skill as well. Of course, so many different players like that in today's game that kind of have that inside out versatility, but a solid rebounding bunch, and a game that's certainly winnable for this Billikens team. Look at their record real quick here. Don't have that one right off the top of my head, but they're around 500. They're now 10-9. They've won 3 games in a row, and they are 4-1 at home. So, I know
Because
Belk
it's
Arena
Belk.
has been a bit of a challenge on the men's side. The women have actually handled Belk very well. They are 4-1 all time in North Carolina. So the Billikens hopefully trying to lean on a little bit of that past success. And Fordham has a really good team once again this year. They were picked near the top of the conference, and this Billikens team is certainly in a mode where they are taking it one day at a time, one game at a time. But that really will be a formidable challenge going up against the Fordham Rams.
At least that one's at home. That's a little bit of good news there.
That is true, where the Billikens have played much better.
Right. One of the things Zach and I have been talking about lately is kind of what Tillett does next in terms of recruiting, because clearly, we've talked about shooting as something that needs to be valued, and Zach's talked about athleticism a little bit, and I know every coach would kind of throw their hands up and say, if I had a bunch of athletic shooters, I think I could win anywhere. But have you gotten a sense yet of what Tillett is trying to do with recruiting, given that there wasn't a fall signing class? She is going to bring a lot of players back, it sounds like. Do you expect more action this spring, or are we going to kind of see more of the same roster as she takes another year to build inroads with the local community and maybe work that 2024 class a little bit harder? And any sense of what's happening there?
So early indications seem to be that there is a lot of work being put in for the 2 classes in the future, as opposed to this one already a little bit late kind of coming in. And,
right,
naturally not having all of those St. Louis connections, it's going to take a little bit of time. And, luckily a lot of the big recruits and targets, I think, that are important for this team are those classes that are 2 years, 3 years down the road, a couple of local products that really could provide something for this team. They're starting to go after a lot of those incarnate word girls, and of course pay really close attention to that team that Dan Rolfes has built into a national powerhouse right in our backyard. And then you've got a couple of other interesting players. I've had the great privilege of going out and seeing Allie Turner play for John Burroughs. She's a 50, 45, 90 type of girl, excellent shooter that we talk about some of the deficiencies that this team has had thus far this year. She seems like she could give a boost in that area, but it seems like, Rebecca Tillett, her style of basketball and the type of players that she's looking for, of course, everyone loves a shooter, somebody who is great on the offensive end. You can't play for Rebecca Tillett unless you bring a fiery level of defensive intensity and you really get the job done on that end. That is the first area that it seems like they're most concerned about, which makes sense. And then she feels like you get her into that, you get those players into her system, and she can help them grow offensively. And it's interesting what she's kind of shared about her own coaching history, that she started off a little bit more on the defensive side, more of a defensive minded coach, especially when she was in the high school game. And then as she progressed into the college game, everything's kind of turned more to, okay, how do we attack? How do we find a way to exploit what this other group is doing and make the offensive game of our players flourish? So interesting to see how that fits in and how that affects the type of targets that they go after and how heavily they prioritize certain types of players.
Colin, thank you so much for joining. Always a great time hanging out with you. Thank you for providing us all an update on women's basketball. I know a lot of us don't get to follow as closely, and certainly not as much as you get to. So appreciate you coming on, and we'll see you soon.
I appreciate you guys for what you do. Always some kind words on the podcast, and of course, keeping the Billikens fans informed, which is of the utmost importance.
Real quick, I almost forgot. Let everybody know where they can find you on social media.
Yeah, on Twitter at Colin PXP. Got plenty of good Billikens content up there for you. And if you are an STL native, plenty of local content on there as well for you on that Twitter page at Colin PXP.
Awesome, man. Thanks again for joining us. Have a good night.
Thank you. You
Thanks.
as well.
See ya. Thanks again to Colin Suhre for joining us and providing his unbelievable in-depth expertise on the Billiken women's basketball program. Speaking of women's athletics, let's move over to women's soccer, Pete. Brianna Halverson, my girl Bree Halverson, invited to Houston Dash training camp. You know, I'm a big fan of Bree. Very excited for her. Best of luck. Pete, why don't you run down the 2023 class, which was officially announced on the Billiken website and Twitter account?
Yeah, and be sure and go check it out for all the blurbs from Coach Shields on these players. She kind of gets into how they're going to fit within her system and why she's excited about them. But it's a 10-person class. It looks like a great class. It's a lot of local talent. We start with Alyssa Bacchius, who's a midfielder out of St. Louis, went to Lindbergh High School, St. Louis Scott Gallagher. She's a top 5 player in the top drawer soccer's region that St. Louis falls into, and the number 38 overall midfielder in the IMG top 150. Samantha DeLuca she can play forward, she can play defense out of Little Rock. She went to Episcopal College School, and Arkansas Rising is her club team. She was the Arkansas Player of the Year as a junior and put up silly numbers. Also played tennis. Jordan Gary is
I wanted to say pulling Arkansas Player of the Year away from a team that we've been kind of rivals with outside of conference.
That's right.
That's big time.
Not letting her stay home and be a Razorback.
Right.
Jordan Gary's a forward out of Collinsville, Illinois, Collinsville High School, St. Louis Scott Gallagher. Really nice career with Gallagher. And then she also played soccer, basketball, cross country, and track at Collinsville. Well-rounded athlete. Autumn Jackson's a defender out of O'Fallon, Missouri, Fort Zumwalt West, and St. Louis Scott Gallagher. She's the number 8 player in the region by Top Drawer Soccer, number 41 overall national defender. Ashley Cook is a forward out of Kansas City, Kansas, Shawnee Mission East High School, and KC Athletics. She was the Kansas Class 6A Forward of the Year. Basically every other accolade a high school player can get after that. Macy Lutz, defender out of Sylvania, Ohio, went to Northview High School and played for the Michigan Hawks club team, which is a perennial top 10 team. Played in the national tournament every year she was there with them. She's actually currently playing in the B tier in Italy right now. Wow. With Rome City FC. So she's getting a great experience over in Europe. Nina, help me with their last.
Preuser. It's just Preuser.
I know. I always stumble on the last name though. I second guess myself. So it's Jess's younger sister. She's a midfielder out of St. Louis who went to Narings Hall and played for Sporting STL club team. She's another one where it's every individual accolade she could possibly have had as a player, all district, all metro, region, and a good club career on top of it. She's going to be great. Eva Schreiber is a defender out of Nashville, Tennessee, Battleground Academy High School, and then Tennessee Soccer Club. 4-year varsity starter, 4-year all-state team, and led her team to 4th Street state finals, winning 2 of them. Lucy Schwartz is a forward out of St. Louis who went to Visitation Academy, another St. Louis Scott Gallagher player, and she's number 4 in the region by Top Drawer Soccer. Maddie Sibbing out of Kansas City is a goalkeeper, the only one in this class. Lee's Summit North High School and Kansas City Scott Gallagher. She's the top goalie out of the KC area, bar none. First team All-State as a junior, second team All-State as a sophomore, and also played volleyball and was an all-conference player there too. So a really well-rounded class, Zach, and a lot of high-level potential here. It's clear that Katie Shields and her staff are stacking classes.
It's incredible. Swimming and diving, Little Rock and Valpo on Saturday for the men. They downed Valpo 173-32 and won all 11 events. Women defeated Valpo 190-31. Little Rock 151-72. Next up Saturday, the 28th versus Maryville. Saw a couple of Valpo fans at Humphreys on Saturday evening, getting dinner after the meet. I hope they enjoyed it. Track and field, we're at the DePaul Invitational, January 20th and 21st. Toby Gillen, new record in the mile. Will Stewart, top Caleb Logan's 200-meter record. Emily Nichols won the 400 meter with 57:42 time, second fastest in the conference this season. Next up at the Indiana relays on the 27th and 28th. Pete, softball?
Yeah, they've got a preseason fundraising dinner on Saturday the 4th at the Moto Museum. So go to slewbillikens.com and you can get more details and register. And Zach, the O'Laughlin Family Champion Center, they've got a little ceremony on Monday, the 23rd. That as we record this, it's, if you're listening, you're probably just missing it. But we figured we'd call it out anyway.
Yeah, Pete, should I go down there and sign the pod name?
That would be great.
I'll do that. I'll do it.
To get that on the beam would truly be great. But they're putting the final steel beam in place on the main structure Monday the 23rd. People can come down and sign anytime after 7:30 a.m. and then at 10 a.m. there's going to be a little ceremony as they lift it into place, and they're still on schedule to complete the facility by October.
One late addition to our notes before we head out. A tweet came out from Billiken Club Hockey today. Denisa Yandova won the bronze medal at the World University game. Denisa obviously plays women's hockey for the Czech Republic. I never know if is it Czechia or Czech Republic. I don't know.
I think the country has officially changed its name.
Their jersey said Czech Republic, so I'm gonna roll with it.
Yeah.
But she plays for the men's club hockey team at SLU, and her Czech Republic team won the bronze medal at the World University Games. That was being held in Lake Placid, New York at the Herb Brooks Arena. Well, Pete, that wraps up the week in Billiken Athletics. Follow us on Twitter at Midtown Mad Pod, at Peter is a tweeter, at Zach Miller MMP, and on Instagram at Midtown Mad Pod. Of course, we appreciate any suggestions. Please subscribe on all platforms. If you haven't left a review, that would be great too. As always, Pete, go Bills.
Go Bills.